You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, the voice of the people, voted best radio station for music 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
Did you know that KNON podcasts all of its local talk shows? KNON has local talk, each show covering your community in its own unique way. So if you missed one of our great morning talk shows, you can go back and listen to it online. We keep the shows for 2 months so you can hear everything you have been missing out on. Visit KNON.org for more information about the KNON Morning Talk Shows podcast. Also available on iTunes.
Good morning and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm David Taffet, and I'm here in the studio with the late Patti Fink. Lerone will be back.
I'm alive.
Lerone will be back with us next week. Our guests this week are Michael Vuolo and Steve Langhi, and they are from American Airlines. Mike, you're actually, are you with American Airlines now?
No longer I was.
Oh, okay, but you're with the union that represents...
Communication Workers of America, yes.
Okay, and Steve, you are actually with American Airlines.
Currently with American Airlines,
You are
yes.
currently with American Airlines. Started your career with TWA?
Actually with Ozark, merged into TWA, merged into American, so I have gone down the line. It's a lifetime of merger she wrote.
And what do you do with American?
I'm a customer service representative at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport.
And this would be one of the reasons that we are having you on, because, Mike, what is going on with the passenger service agents?
Just a couple of days ago. Customer service agents from the airports, from cargo, those that are left that haven't been outsourced, and baggage service, and from the reservations offices have started voting in a long-awaited union election. They started voting on voting instructions were mailed December 4th. They will vote online or vote via toll-free number up until January 15th, and at 2 o'clock on January 15th, we will be hearing that these folks will have an opportunity to negotiate a contract.
That's a long voting period, so this is early voting in January 15th.
Yeah, similar to early voting. Yeah, actually, the voting used to be handled by mail-in ballot, and after the anthrax scare in Washington after September 11th, they came up with online voting, and the normal voting period for a group this size is usually about 4 weeks, but because of all the delays that have been caused with the lawsuits, they've extended.
Well, and holidays come in the middle of it too.
Plus the holidays.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are you voting on, Steve? Why you're the group that is still not unionized? Pilots are unionized, flight attendants are unionized, mechanics are unionized, but you're not.
Correct, yes. All other work groups in the American Airlines workforce are organized, and I feel personally it's about time that we are given an opportunity to partake of our fair share of American Airlines business and some sort of security. And it seems like without organization, we're basically told what we can and can't do, what we have to take, especially now in bankruptcy.
So before, in bankruptcy we'll talk about in a minute, so before what would happen is American would negotiate with the pilots, American would negotiate with the flight attendants, and the flight attendants would get mad at the pilots for getting something, but they were pretty good about not crossing each other's picket lines. But the passenger service people, which includes what? Ticket agents, baggage handlers?
Includes the ticket agents, the folks that it used to include all of these groups, ticket agents, the folks that check you in at the gates, the reservations agents on the telephone, anyone that has face-to-face or telephone contact with the public. And under the National Mediation Board, which rules are a little bit different for airlines, they're governed under the Railway Labor Act. Anyone with that personal contact would become what is called part of a class and craft. So if you have customer contact, you're part of this unit. It's not a location by location unit. Under these rules, you have to organize everybody within that unit from everybody in the United States, in the territories. So if you have employees in Guam, if you have employees in Puerto Rico, St. Thomas, St. Croix, they're all included under one unit, and you have to get a majority vote out of that unit in order to win.
Now, some of the issues, what are some of the issues that you're dealing with that unionized employees have settled already?
Well, job security for one. I know pay, benefits, medical, retirement. Those are just some of the issues we're all faced with.
And with bankruptcy, Mike, how does that change?
In bankruptcy, it used to be, if you remember the old days of Ozark and Eastern Airlines, and when all these mergers were going on, Eastern and Pan Am and airlines were going out of business. Frank Lorenzo, big name in this industry for years, who's no longer allowed to operate an airline. The way they busted the unions in the 70s and 80s was to file bankruptcy. In bankruptcy court, you would go to the judge and say, anything that has to do with the contract becomes renegotiable in bankruptcy court. The judge can throw those contracts out. So the companies would take it to the bankruptcy judge. He would say, rubber stamp, no more union, no more contract. When they come out of bankruptcy, you'll start negotiating new. That's changed. They now have in Section 1113 in bankruptcy court. When you file bankruptcy, which is the case with American presents the judge with what they think each of these groups should have. And then the Section 1113 guarantees negotiation throughout the bankruptcy period. So the bankruptcy judge can't just throw it out. They force the company to sit down with each of the union groups and hash out a contract that would work. It goes to a vote by the membership, and if it's passed, then the bankruptcy judge either approves it or sends you back to the table. The case for the agents at American Airlines, the customer service unit, when American presents what's going to happen to them to the judge says that's fine, stamps it okay, no matter what it is, because he does not have to have any dealings with that because there's no contract tied into it. So the union groups got term sheets. They know what all of their benefits, their pay and working conditions are worth in a menu-based looking sheet, a little more complicated than that. The agents are told everyone's given up 20% overall. That's not necessarily pay, but it's what these benefits are worth. Everyone gives up 20%. The union groups see what it is worth. These groups didn't. And every single one of the union groups hired analysts and specialists, naturally, that found errors in these sheets. The agent said, the company says to the agents, you just need to trust us. You gave up 20% just like them. And when the ramp and the flight attendant groups were settling their contracts at one point, I can't remember which group it was, they came up with 17% in savings, and the company said, okay, we'll agree to that for you and everyone else that has a Me Too clause. So we'll bring down your savings to 17%. And with this group, they said, we're going to give you this to make you equal 17%, but nobody knows what this is, and nobody can see the figures on paper without a union.
So, there's been sort of an anti-union atmosphere in the country today, but it's really resurging. It's coming back. We see, protest actions taking place at Walmart, a huge employer, a huge consumer outlet. Do you think that that organized labor as it is today, particularly at American Airlines, has a chance to really be a force to be reckoned with? I mean, obviously they are in the other unions, but if the service representatives get their union, is that going to make all employees at American?
It'll make employees,
the whole workforce?
It'll help that workforce, but the other thing that it does is when you have a group like agents in American, those who are union pretty much determine what the non-union people are going to make, because those airlines, A, want to remain competitive, or B, want to keep the union out of their door. If you look at the case of Southwest Airlines, many people don't think Southwest Airlines is unionized because they make money. Their employees make really good money. Southwest Airlines is the heaviest unionized corporation airline in this country. A little bit over 85 to 86% of their employees belong to a union. Their agents make the maximum part of this contract now about $5 more an hour than the top agents do at American, and deal with just domestic flights. They deal with, everyone's flown Southwest. They're a great airline, seem to be a great company to work for. Every airline's feeling a little bit of a crunch now because of the shape of the country. But the more people who are unionized, the more you keep your benefits higher for every other group. And now that we're down to 8% organized in this country, in the private sector, we're losing benefits. And people just keep saying it's the way of the world. Well, it shouldn't be the way of the world, because I remember my grandfather fighting for those benefits when he came to this country. And things like pensions, things like health care, everybody provided them when 39% of this country belonged to a union. Now that we're 8%, what's happening?
Well, I remember my father was a machinist and belonged to a union all of his life. And, in the beginning of the labor force and labor movement were basic issues of safety in the workplace. And my dad said, without the union, they would have had terrible conditions. He could just see employers, making it terribly unsafe. You lose life and limb going to work.
So people think you should have weekends off?
Sure. But you need to come home as a one piece, so you can enjoy your weekend.
Right, not necessarily weekends. I mean, the unions brought to this country the 40-hour work week, overtime for anything over 8. Now it's only overtime if you've worked 40. They're responsible for a lot of environmental protections. The flight attendant unions just recently just got something passed in Congress, and it escapes my mind exactly what it was, but it was a health and safety issue. Oh, and OSHA for issues that happen at work. They weren't covered by OSHA laws on board airplanes for certain things, and they just got that. They've gotten things like the Family Medical Leave Act passed. They've, years ago, when you were a flight attendant, if you hit 32, if you got married or if you were pregnant, your days were over. You could
32?
32 years old was the ending
Patty,
age.
like you couldn't be a flight attendant.
You couldn't be a flight attendant today if it was back in the 60s or the 50s. So the unions fought all of these laws in Congress and got things changed. You can work pregnant as long as your doctor says you can. Right. You can work if you're married.
Right. And wasn't it more than that, Steve? Even in customer service, you couldn't sell an airline ticket if you were too old.
Well, I don't know if there were age limitations on customer service agents, because I do know people that have gone into usual age for retirement with this job. But I do know that I felt over the years that I've worked in both organized and unorganized workforces that there's been a more balanced approach to my job and a better relationship with coworkers, managers. Everybody knew that there was a fair system, there was fairness in place, and the union was basically to make sure that you were being treated fairly in the work environment.
With this vote that's going on right now, if this group votes to become unionized, will unions cover everybody in American then, or are there still some classes or some jobs?
For the most part, for non-union employees that can belong to unions, for the most part, every group will be unionized by then, except for their clerical group, which includes secretaries, their Advantage Customer Service Department, a couple other small departments, weight and balance, crew schedule that handle the weight and balance of the airplanes and scheduling.
So it's more people who work at corporate headquarters that...
Yeah, corporate headquarters are in the operations. Not many of them. This group here, when they started organizing, their last election in 1997 was 17,700 agents. The laws were different. In that last election, the way you voted no in this union election was throw your ballot away. So the companies would pad the list, and if the union didn't catch people on the list that shouldn't have been there, those people would receive a ballot. If they didn't return the ballot, it was a no vote. There was never a way to vote no. So now those laws 3 years ago changed. The unions worked on getting these changed in Congress, where every vote will count. If you don't vote, your vote doesn't count. So there's now a way to vote yes and a way to vote no. The law that just passed and what caused the problem with their election here was you used to have to provide the government with signatures from 35% of the eligible group to request an election. Be the same as our politicians getting signatures on sheets to get on the ballot. Once the government determined that you had sufficient interest from that group, they would call for an election. We filed with well over 35%. Normally a union will file with less than 50 because you need the 50% to win. 2 months after this group filed, the Congress passed the FAA reauthorization bill, and tacked on to the back of that bill was just a few sentences which said, if you want a union election under the Railway Labor Act, you are now going to need to get 50% signed before you can even call for an election to determine whether or not this group wants to vote secretly to say if they want to vote or not. An American turned around and filed a lawsuit in Fort Worth, their home office, with the federal court. In a court, they sued the National Mediation Board for not paying attention to the law. On the floor of Congress, they discussed the fact that this law was not to be retroactive. Laws aren't written retroactively. You can't go back and arrest someone for something they did in December when the law wasn't put in place till February. But they did it because they know it would cause a delay. And while in bankruptcy, while the lawsuits were going on, we had, that was turned over to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, October 1st. We won that case. American then appealed to the Supreme Court, and Justice Scalia would not accept that case. He sees the Fifth Circuit Court, he oversees Fifth Circuit Court. They wouldn't see it. Now they're threatening to file an appeal there, but the government has moved, the injunction on the election has been lifted. They're moving forward with the election, and we don't know what's going to happen between now and if they could get all the Supreme Court to stop it.
And this wasn't surprising because Scalia has a reputation for being pro-labor and liberal.
Right.
And they're looking at me.
Should I laugh now? Or right, exactly.
No, but he did vote in the union's favor. Or not, he ruled in the union's favor.
He ruled in the employees' favor. I mean, and it was really funny. I've been to all of the hearings. And in New Orleans, which was a very conservative group of 3 judges that heard this case, one of the judges was scratching his head and said to the company, now, if I'm not mistaken, whether or not they're 35 or 50%, they still have to have that opportunity to vote, and more than 50% of those who vote have to say yes for the union to get in. So why are we wasting this time and money? A company in bankruptcy that have spent up until September, and this was prior to the appeal, over $2 million just fighting this group to have a voice.
And the irony in my eyes is that up until now, they've been saying, we don't want you to have any kind of an election for representation. But now that there are ballots out there, they want us all to vote.
Because they believe that
they're trying to get
if
more
everybody
no
votes,
then yes votes.
That a lot of people would vote no.
I think that's their...
Yeah, it used to be rip your ballot up. There's rip the ballot up, or that big bad union man's going to steal it from your mailbox and he's going to vote for you. So rip it up, give it a tear. They ran these major campaigns at their reservation center here. Every time someone ripped a ballot up, somebody clanged one of those hotel bells to make a big deal out of it. Now everyone that wants to vote should vote. And of course, those that have been fighting to get some sort of representation want people to vote yes. Now the managers are paying attention to nothing but running around airports and running around reservation centers all day long. Did you vote? Did you vote? You better vote. Go vote now. Did you vote? You better go vote. Because there are some people that may want to sit it
And
out.
Texas is a right-to-work state, so Steve, even if you vote yes for union representation, you don't have to join the union, do you?
Well,
yes, you do.
Under this contract, you would.
Under the Railway Labor Act.
Railway Labor Act,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so the state law is superseded in
Yes.
this case. Okay,
Railway
we're
Labor Act.
talking to Michael Vuolo. Can't talk this morning. We're talking to Michael Vuolo. He is a union organizer with Communication Workers of America, which is part of AFL-CIO, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And we're talking to Steve Langhi. He is with American Airlines, previously TWA, previously Ozark Airlines. And I actually flew Ozark a couple of times.
Great.
You can tell how old you are.
You
I
can
know.
tell how old I am.
I love to
Right,
know.
And I can say I flew Braniff.
I'm in my late. I've never denied being in my late 30s, my extremely late 30s. We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly, talking more about unions and stuff like that, and why this is an LGBT issue. Right after this.
You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, the voice of the people, voted best radio station for music 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
This Sunday at Port David's Pub, it's the Blues Diva Showcase. Gilda here from the Wednesday Morning Blues Crew with your personal invitation to a big KNON event this Sunday, December 9th at Port David's Pub. Don't miss my band, the Gilda Medina Band, and don't miss all of the amazing blues women this Sunday with Miss Marcy and her Texas Sugar Daddies, Blue Lisa, and the Big D Playboys, Andrea Dawson, Brittany Yates, Javelin, Lady Lotion, and Sugar Mama. Short Stack from the Blue Mondays will be your hostess this Sunday. We have free dinner from the legendary Henderson's Chicken. This Sunday, it's a party for your ears and a party for your belly. This Sunday is an early show with doors at 5 p.m. and music at 5:30, ending at 9 p.m. Tickets are at KNON.org, Henderson's Chicken outlets in Dallas, Fair Park, and Lancaster, Bill's Records, and Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie. Port David's Pub is located at 1313 South Lamar in Dallas. The Big Blues Divas Showcase this Sunday, 5 p.m. at Port David's Pub. This is a KNON benefit event.
And I'm Action Annie.
And I'm Rockin' Robin.
And we're here to tell you that the Magic Time Warp Show has moved to Monday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. on KNON.
Tune in every Monday morning, 7 a.m. for the best 50s music you've ever heard.
Right here on KNON, the voice of the people.
This is Lewis from UT Arlington, and I listen to Lambda Weekly podcast at lambdaweekly.com.
And this is Dave Taffet. I'm here with the late Patti Fink. You're listening to Lambda Weekly, and our guests today are Michael Vuolo. He is a union organizer with CWA, Communications Workers, which represents... Do you represent all of the...
We represent quite a few airlines, yes. The Association of Flight Attendants is part of us. They represent close to 50,000 flight attendants, different carriers, and passenger service units. We represent the agents at U.S. Airways.
Oh, okay. So if American and U.S. Airways do merge... That would be one merger that would
it would be one
facilitated.
merger. It would probably be one of the easiest mergers with a union contract, especially if this group is union prior to a merger.
Okay.
Of course, nobody knows where that's headed. It's all speculation, and everyone's under, keep your mouth shut contracts while this stuff goes on in bankruptcy court.
Of course, and we don't know what's going to go on with that, but I know the U.S. Airways was planning on making a new merger offer this week. And Steve Langhi is with American Airlines, previously TWA, previously Ozark. Now, possibly U.S. Airways.
Again, merger she wrote, the story of my life, 34 years.
So, we've been talking about unions, but we haven't brought in, why is this an LGBT issue? How do unions specifically protect gay and lesbian employees, transgender employees, in a way that federal laws are not protecting gay and lesbian workers?
It's a great question. Back in the 80s and late 80s, people always have this feeling that the unions were a man's world, and way back when they really were. There weren't as many women in the workplace. LGBT folks were definitely closeted, and still are at many locations. I mean, we see things that have gone on at ExxonMobil. They merge, one group has benefits, then it's taken away. What happened was, especially in the airline industry, which seems to have a higher percentage of LGBT employees.
Do you know, I've never noticed gay people working at the airlines.
I'm shocked, absolutely shocked.
Hospitals, or
right? It's an industry that attracted more than a lot of normal businesses.
And one reason that it always did, because if you're not married, you're free to travel.
You can travel. You don't need to be home. You might have a little bit more cash, so you don't mind the on hand because you're not paying bills for as large of a family. That's true. And what happened when we kept trying on a state level and on a federal level to get laws changed to protect LGBT employees, we were going nowhere. We were spinning our wheels. Through the Reagan years, spinning our wheels. We're still spinning our wheels on some of these issues today. LGBT employees and a lot of corporations, such as the phone companies and airlines, spoke up and said, you know what? I'm paying union dues. I'm going to become part of my union, and I am going to force legally binding protections and benefits into my contract. So, for instance, in this country right now, the federal laws will only protect you on a job if you can prove that you've been discriminated against for sex, age, race, religion, and now for disability. If you're lesbian, gay, you can be legally fired on a federal basis in this country. So what they did was they went and negotiated contracts with companies to add over and above those protections in their own contracts, which state the policy at this airline. And American is great with this. The policy is you will not be discriminated against in addition to the federal protections, sexual orientation, gender identification. Some go even further. So if you are terminated or an incident happens at work, it goes to a neutral arbitrator who would rule. If you've proven it, it would rule in your favor, regardless of what the federal law says. So the airline folks negotiated benefits, domestic partner benefits. That took place, and I remember when that happened in the 80s, places like San Francisco that started putting living wages in, told the airlines, in this city, if you're going to do business, you're going to have to provide benefits to your employees. Immediately, the first two airlines to file a lawsuit against the city were American and U.S. Airways, who said, we come under different rules. We want to make sure that we're not forced to do this because they don't want to do it everywhere. And a couple other incidents that happened with different things, and they started providing those benefits. And a lot of them started providing them for many reasons. The goodness of their heart again, or to make sure that if Americans given these benefits or Southwest is giving them, those that are non-union better give them too, or our folks might want to go to a union to force these benefits into a legally binding contract. So they become legally binding when they're in the form of a contract that both parties negotiate, approve, and sign.
See, I've always found that large companies do those kinds of things just out of the goodness of their heart because that's the way they are.
Right, yeah.
But, you must say, though, there are a lot of large corporations that get it,
yes,
that diversity is good for business,
right,
and supporting their employees is good for business.
Right, and it is, and I'm sure it'll remain that way in this case, but if you look at things...
And one thing that's interesting is American has said, even in the bankruptcy negotiations, that they don't have intentions of taking these benefits away from their gay and lesbian employees, even the non-unionized ones. So, Steve, they could take them from you without being able to take them from their unionized employees. So we're not American bashing here at all. I mean, that's not the point.
No, but you have to look at a situation like this one that they're in. Okay, you have LGBT benefits, and the companies promise they won't take them away, and probably a good chance that won't happen. Mm-hmm. But when you have a company that is fighting a simple, basic, fundamental right to life in this country, which is the right to vote, yes or no, or the right to vote for someone, when your right to vote in this country is stepped on, it makes you think about the rest of your rights beyond that.
Right. Oh, sure.
And what could happen.
Sure.
And in reality, I think the LGBT agenda has, over the years, at least through my business career, it has gone from a moral agenda to a social and definitely an economic agenda. And that's where businesses will open their eyes when they see the bottom line.
I just want to tell the story just real quick because I was involved in it, and we actually broke the story here on Lambda Weekly at the time. And that was coming back from the March on Washington in 1993. There was a message sent from one of the planes coming back to Dallas to a ground controller. And the message said, pilot requests full change of pillows and blankets due to gay rights activists on board. That message was received by a ground controller who happened to be gay. He got the message to me, who happened to have a radio show, worked for the Dallas Voice, and was vice president of Dallas Gay and Lesbian Alliance at the time. Here, do whatever you want with this, but this is outrageous, basically, is what he said. We went to the media locally. It became in 2 days a national story, and American Airlines had to relent. Now, one of the things that they did in relenting was they went to an LGBT public relations firm. And the firm said to Bob Crandall, who was president of the airline at the time, "We'll work with you if you're serious about making some systemic changes here." And they thought about it and decided, yeah, they were. And one of the things that they did was they decided, we realized that there was some confusion between the difference between gay and AIDS. And we hooked them up with Resource Center Dallas, and American Airlines instituted some good AIDS training, and within 6 months, American was the safest airline for somebody to fly if they had HIV. Because flight attendants were trained, what do you actually do if something happens? The other thing that they did was they started a gay and lesbian, it was the first one, gay and lesbian marketing program. Because one of the things I was saying was, 1993, the airline was in a slump. All the airlines were in a slump. And I said, we filled every single one of their planes in and out of Washington this week, and they should be thanking us, not criticizing us.
Right. The revenue that was brought in.
And Bob Crandall looked at the numbers, and he said, oh, right. And so they started marketing to the gay and lesbian community, and instead of us being the demons, all of a sudden we became a wonderful market for them, which continues to this day.
Right.
I mean, countless hundreds of millions of dollars spent on air travel.
The bottom line, like I said.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually a gay man employed by American Airlines who gave us all of the first reward program.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The
Advantage program.
The Advantage program, and exactly. Yeah, I was working for them when that came out back on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And if you look at their advertising is phenomenal in The Voice, and you see it in other newspapers and other magazines. And they don't only advertise to LGBT employees, but if you look at Essence magazine or you look at a Hispanic magazine, they are advertising to all diverse groups in this country.
As a result of this whole incident with American and with the gay community, they decided, oh yeah, maybe black people travel too. Oh, Hispanic people. Oh, look at and look at the difference. Of course, they were opportunities, and they realized, oh, those are our employees too, and those are our. Yeah. So there was no reason for this nonsense. And
it was always a melting pot of employees, so why not make it a melting pot for our passengers as well? And, and they realized, how good that was for business.
Exactly. Now, the funny story about this was I had gotten a call, it was Wednesday night, because the planes came back from Washington on Sunday and Monday. I got a call, it was Wednesday night, we were deciding were we going to go on Katie or Good Morning America the next morning. I got a call. It was 4:30 in the evening. Hello, this is what's his name? Dan Rather, and not Dan Rather. No, NBC.
Cronkite?
No, NBC.
Brokaw.
Oh, Brokaw. This is Tom Brokaw. Right. This is Tom Brokaw, and we were wondering if you accepted the apology, because that's all we ever asked for was an apology from American Airlines for this memo. And I said, oh, my fax machine's running. I ran, got the fax, and it was addressed to David Taffet, Tom Brokaw, and CNN. Which was ridiculous. But so I said, yeah, that's all we ever asked for. And he led the gay rights activists in Dallas are accepting the apology of Bob Crandall from American Airlines.
You swallow your words very well.
So thank you. And that was and that was the end of it, and no Good Morning America the next day. So. Anyway, so job security is one of those gay issues that unions are.
Job security is a big issue, and in this case, it's a massive issue because while they should have had their election in June and would have been able to negotiate job protections in bankruptcy court, this group, I had started saying earlier, the last time they voted was 17,700 employees in this unit. TWA came on board, there was 21,000, and we were just getting ready to work toward another election just prior to 9/11. We know what a disaster that was. I lost more than 10 folks that I knew then, and it crippled the entire airline industry, whether your airline was affected or not that day. We had 21,000 employees at that point with TWA. The unit that is voting today is 9,500 employees. And the biggest reason for it is because these folks that have decent middle-class jobs with retirement, of course, their pensions are now frozen. They weren't dumped, thank you, American, in bankruptcy court, but they are frozen, so they're going to kick over to a 401k. The business world is making sure none of us have pensions pretty soon. The union groups still negotiate them, but in the case of the bankruptcy, even the union groups here have lost them. Their jobs are being outsourced. If you go to the ticket counters today, just effective over the last 4 to 6 weeks, anybody wearing a red coat is not an American Airlines employee. They are a third party. Many of these companies are run by former executives of American, former executives of other airlines who have left with their medical benefits, their travel benefits,
their golden parachutes,
or silver parachutes, and now they're hiring people off the street at $7, $8, $9 an hour with no benefits whatsoever to do the jobs of what Steve does at the airport. Baggage service.
Have you been offered one of those jobs?
No, I haven't. But I still have the job I have, thank God.
He hasn't, and that's a very serious question, because in places...
Oh, I meant it serious.
No, it is serious. Yeah. He hasn't in Dallas. He's lucky being the largest station. Hartford, Connecticut, it's a station that's been around for American since the 40s. Memphis, one of American's first cities. Portland, Oregon, all of these cities that had American passenger service employees like him, 7 of them were just outsourced. And yes, their choices were, if your seniority holds that you can move to Dallas, if there's not enough room for all of you, you can take furlough and have recall rights, or you can come to work for me at $7 an hour and give up everything that you have now. And unfortunately, many of those folks, because of the economic situation or family situation, have taken it because they need to put food on the table. And now they're wearing almost the same uniform with no AAs on them, doing the same thing some of them have been doing for well over 20 and 30 years for a third party, and they've taken massive cuts.
I'll bet they're doing more than they used to do because...
Probably.
Yeah.
Because there are fewer of them doing
There's fewer of them doing it, exactly.
And as a person with customer service experience, I'm proud of the level of service I offer, because based on the experience I have and the job knowledge, and it's kind of frustrating when you have customers coming to you that have been referred to you from a red coat because the red coat couldn't do what they should have done, or, for example...
So you're doing twice as much, too, now.
Well, in some ways, yes. I mean, yesterday, for example, I had a customer come up to me in Terminal D to check in for an international connection. He was checking in 20 minutes before departure, which is too late. He was sent from another terminal where he could have checked in. We can check in for any flight, any destination, any terminal. But because the person who checked him in didn't know how to handle the situation, referred him to me or to my terminal because it was international, and he was too late.
And
he would have been on time at the other terminal. Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons for that is the folks that these companies are hiring in defense of them. They're people that need jobs. Steve's training was 4 to 6 weeks when he first started, continuous training throughout your career. These groups they're hiring now are going through 2 weeks worth of training and being thrown to the dogs, plus not given any benefits. So who has a vested interest in American Airlines? The person who's making a decent living, can put food on the table, has medical insurance, or this poor guy that's using this as a path to hopefully something better will come my way at $7 or $8 an hour with no benefits?
But the ex-AA executive is still basically on the dole from American Airlines.
That are running these companies.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right.
We're talking to Michael Vuolo. He is with the Communication Workers of America, and we're talking to Steve Langhi. He is with American Airlines. They're having a union vote over the next month. We're going to talk more about unions and how it protects the gay and lesbian community and gay and lesbian employees, and some other stuff that just happened with the Supreme Court yesterday, right after this.
You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas. Voted best radio station for music for 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
If you are the low-income parent or guardian of children in need of childcare, there are programs available in the area that may be just right for you and your kids. Texas Workforce Commission offers solutions for families in need of assistance. Find them on the web at twc.state.tx.us. Click on Programs and Services in the blue bar at the bottom of the page to find out if you are eligible. 211 Texas, a program of the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, also offers child care provider referrals for families seeking subsidized child care. Contact them at 211texas.org or dial 211. If dialing 211 directly doesn't work on your telephone, you can call 877-541-7905.
Don't be a Scrooge. Give the blues to the music lover on your list. KNON has the perfect CD or LP for you. Texas Blues Radio, Volume 5.
Texas Blues Radio, Volume 5 features acoustic blues, instrumental blues, party songs, somebody done somebody wrong songs.
Baby Got a Good Thing songs, six-pack and devilback songs.
Gumbo, jive, T-bone, and hip-shaking songs from a fine selection of great Texas blues artists.
So do right by the blues and give some Texas blues this year.
Texas Blues Radio, Volume 5 CD is available at KNON.org, Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Record Town in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records and Rewind Music.
Download a copy at cdbaby.com.
The LP is only available at Forever Young Records.
All proceeds are a gift to KNON.
Hi, this is Patti Fink, and you're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 KNON FM.
And this is Dave Taffet, and I'm here with the late Patti Fink. When you recorded that spot, you didn't use your full name.
I didn't use my whole moniker, no. I should do it again.
We should. We're talking to Michael Vuolo. He's with Communications Workers of America, represents flight attendants at American Airlines and U.S. Airways.
Not an American, actually, but passenger service units at U.S. Air. American Airlines flight attendants are in support of this effort, but they're an independent union.
Okay.
They're not part of CWA.
Okay. And Steve Langhi, he is with American Airlines.
I was going to go back. I just been chewing on this now since you said it in the first segment. When back in the day, you couldn't be a flight attendant and be married.
Right.
But we're really talking about women can't be married.
Right.
But were there any male
The only
flight
male
attendants?
flight attendants back in the day were, you want to talk about sexism? They were stewards. They were in charge of all the females, and they were usually called pursers back then, usually only on international flights. And, they were the ones in their white coats and white gloves that came and make sure, A, flight attendants were doing what they were supposed to be doing, and B, that the customer agreed that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy.
Wow.
I mean, we have flight attendants now. American with the package that they just offered. Delta Airlines, one of their oldest flight attendants, just retired at 81 years old.
Ooh. Wow.
As long as you can perform safety duties on your yearly checks, you can continue working. So that's a great thing, and a lot of that brought about by unions.
Before we go on, I have 2 tickets that they gave me by mistake, but they're ours to give away. Not give away. It's part of our fundraising drive, because everybody knows who listens to KNON. We're customer. I was going to say passenger driven. We're listener driven and funded. I have 2 tickets to the Chinese Lantern Festival, which we've talked about several times. I was there.
We're going tomorrow.
You're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
I love this Chinese Lantern Festival. It is the best use of Fair Park since a couple of guys decided to set aside acreage over in South Dallas for the fair 100 years ago. It is fabulous. And if you come back and say you didn't enjoy it...
Oh, I bet not. We're going to go. We're making an evening of it. We're going tomorrow. You can get there by train. You
That's
you
the
can
best
go by
part.
dark rail.
One of the best parts.
Anyway,
It's in the evening, of course, because it's lanterns.
Well, it's lanterns. So it starts it's 5 to 10 o'clock. Admission is like $19 a person, and parking is $15 a person. Take DART; it's a lot easier. I have 2 tickets. If somebody would like these 2 tickets for a $50 pledge, if you give us a credit card, I'll mail them out today. So, or if you're in the area, we'll drop them by to you, or you can pick them up here at the studio. We'll figure it out. Doc is going to answer the phone, 972-647-1893. We'd love to I just want to get other people to this festival. I love the
Absolutely.
Chinese Lantern Festival. Anyway,
972-647-1893.
$50 pledge gets you 2 tickets, and then you can write the cost of the tickets off because KNON is non-profit organization. Yesterday, the Supreme Court decided to hear 2 cases.
Yes. And I always find this troublesome to me in my mind because everybody refers to them, the Supreme Court's going to hear 2 gay marriage cases. Well, it's not gay marriage. There's nobody here who's gay married. It's marriage.
It's marriage.
It's marriage equality. But I think it's interesting because this is the time to get sort of nervous, I guess, because this is the ultimate arbiter of our laws in this country.
Okay, so Prop 8 they're going to hear.
Going to hear Prop 8. They're going to.
And had they decided not to hear Prop 8, we would have had marriage in California this week.
Yeah.
But we're not
true.
going to have marriage in California this week. We have to wait for them to hear the case. But what are they going to decide?
I think they're going to decide basically the constitutionality of it's a direct hit on DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, as is the case coming out of New York, which is addressing the state's ability to give equal benefits to married couples in the state of New York due to the limitations of DOMA. So these are going to be really important cases. Most likely we'll have oral arguments in March and we'll hear the decision in June. Brace. This is up now.
Here's one thing that I think is interesting about those cases. With the Prop 8 case, one of the orders is to decide on standing. So if they decide that the people who were defending DOMA have no standing because the state refused to defend it, not only does it throw out Prop 8, but it also throws out the appeals court's final decision because that was a standing case. And it puts back into effect Judge Walker's ruling, which was so pro same-sex marriage, and that becomes law. So what we, in a way, want them to do is find they had no standing, which would reinstate the lower court's ruling, and again, California will have marriage, but that ruling stands. Right now it's been not overturned, but it's a different ruling that stands with the higher court.
And we have, we have no real legal expertise here, unless you guys are lawyers.
No, learning an awful lot though the last year and a half with bankruptcies and Supreme Courts and district courts and.
But I think, I don't know if it's possible by becoming law for California from a federal court, if that would also apply, nationwide. But I think the direct challenge to DOMA, and this is a similar case that the state of Massachusetts brought, saying our hands are tied as a state. We want to give full equal benefits to our citizens who are married, if they're the same-sex couple or straight. But right now we have to treat our same-sex married couples in our state as second-class citizens because DOMA ties our hands. Make DOMA go away so we can treat our citizens equally. And so it's the same sort of case that New York has brought. So I think this is a direct challenge, and it is the states who are filing these cases and what's going to be heard. So it's really a pivotal case for the Supreme Court to handle because it's the federal court talking the federal government versus
which will
the
change
state
things on a state level. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, coming from Massachusetts myself, born and raised in Boston,
we couldn't tell.
I know, right? With my southern drawl, it's been absolutely amazing to watch, and it's really funny. I actually have a cousin who was married the first day, and I went to the wedding. She was married day one of being allowed to get married legally in the state of Massachusetts. And I also remember a few years later when she called me and said, people need to remember when you get married and it's legal. She got divorced and had to go through the same process, but said, I had the right to do that. I had the right to get married, and it felt great. We look at the different things. I myself, I think in this country, a lot of it is people are tripped up on that word marriage. It's a church thing. I'm fine with domestic, whatever you want to call it, right? Go to City Hall, get married, get the piece of paper. But this country is a melting pot for everybody, and we should all enjoy the same benefits. I pay school taxes. I don't have children.
The problem with domestic partner is there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But then states start saying, oh, well, yeah, but you just have a domestic partnership. This applies to marriages. Whereas you're used to the union contract, which by contract, by signed agreement, they're going to be the same thing.
Yes. Call it a civil union, call it, right.
And
No,
that's
exactly,
not
I
what
understand.
legislatures are doing.
Legislature, right.
Yeah.
We want that word marriage.
The one thing about the DOMA case they took, there were 5 different cases that they could have taken. The one that they picked is the one that we have the best chance on, because this involves a couple, one of the partners, they'd been together for 45 years, one of the partners died, and because they weren't married, the surviving spouse owed $350,000 in taxes.
estate taxes.
In estate taxes. She would have owed 0 if they were legally married,
right.
and it was recognized by the federal government. The reason I say it's one of the cases that we have the best chance on is that the one thing that every conservative understands is taxes.
Right.
And it's just so easy to show this one would have paid nothing, this one had to pay $350,000, and a woman in her 70s, it's not fair.
Bought the house together, paid for the house together.
All of it, everything.
And have paid
They're
all the
together
bills
45
together,
years.
and now you have to pay it, but you're straight, you know.
If you're
There's
straight,
people across
Talk
the street
money.
who are married.
If you
don't have-
it is a good case, because, I mean,
a
if
great
you
case.
talk money and you put that word tax in front of it, you're right.
It's strictly money.
Conservatives will
There's
listen.
nothing about this that Scalia can say, oh, but it's immoral. No, what's immoral is that you're charging this one $350,000 and
And not
charging that one
yourself.
0.
Right.
That's what's immoral, and I think they'll get it.
Discriminatory.
Yeah, it's nothing more than
It's
discriminatory.
the same as we talked about earlier with Steve, right? His medical benefits at work. You pay what the government decides that value of that medical insurance is worth, gets added to his income at the end of the year, and he pays close to 30% taxes on that. But if you're married, you get those benefits and you don't pay a tax. It's no different.
My former domestic partner and I did a lot of traveling, and one year my taxable income was $5,000 more than my actual income because of the value of the trips we took,
Wow.
the value of the airline trips we took as part of my benefit, travel benefit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of lament that this case is out of New York, because it means that David's going to talk about New York and taxes for months, for probably
next-
another
right,
year.
till June.
I mean, seriously, what have I been talking about?
Help us, listeners.
No, but for years, that's the one thing I've been saying is that we're going to win this based on taxes, because that's the
You're
thing that
absolutely
they
right about
understand.
that.
Yeah.
And it's a case like
it's
this
boring.
that will blow. It's a case like this that will blow it up. It's not a 10-year marriage. It's not. They've been together for 45
years.
Now it's right in their face. How are you going to turn us down now? It
Exactly.
is going to be an interesting. I'm sure it's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to
Sure.
be a good one.
Right. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a good one.
You know, and it's almost annoying that they're taking these cases. Had they decided to not take any of them, the lower court rulings would have stood,
Would have
and as
stood,
of
right.
today, DOMA would have been gone. But oh well, we're going to have to live
And
with
it's
them.
all about government in our lives, too. And there are a lot of people, especially on the conservative side, will say, take government out of our lives. Well, if you're talking about a personal commitment, then let it be a personal commitment. Let the government get out of the way.
Right, because right now it's to get the government out of our lives, but not yours.
But not yours,
yeah.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly it.
Gays, guns, and God.
But but like with these union contracts, you have sort of an INDA. You've made your own INDA
Yes, to a
because
certain
it's
extent, it's there and it's enforceable. It's something that we have to do to protect folks at work until the federal laws change. And even after the federal laws change, not that having a union contract's a bad thing. Every top management member in every one of these publicly traded companies have a contract.
Yes.
So why shouldn't every other employee, especially your frontline employees, who are the folks that are responsible for bringing repeat business back?
And I've also had management tell me on previous jobs where I've been a member of a union group, that their jobs are easier when they have a contract. Everything's fair. You don't have favorites. You just treat everybody according to the contract. Nothing simpler.
Herb Kelleher, when he
that makes
started,
sense.
Herb Kelleher, when he started Southwest, said, in the 70s, my employees will be union. That we will negotiate union contracts to cover wages, benefits, and working conditions. And for the duration of that contract, we're all going to work together to concentrate on one thing: customer service and making this airline
Right, and how many
successful.
strikes have they had? None.
No, well, as a matter of fact, after he was gone, and no, it wasn't even a strike. We went with the matter of fact, our union, a couple other unions helped. Flight attendants from Southwest had called us and said, "We're going to need your help. We've never had to picket before. You know, this company's been great. We've never had to be out there before, so we need folks to join us." And they had to do some informational picketing, you know, and that's what scares people.
But it wasn't
and
a strike.
No, it
They
wasn't
never
a
had a
strike.
strike,
It was
yeah.
just to bring attention to the fact that the companies weren't negotiating in good faith. It's very, very hard to go on strike in an airline industry, and management uses this as a scare tactic. The President of the United States can actually put an end to strikes in the airlines, and he did it with the pilots at American a few years back. They were on strike for 7 minutes. And that's why these contracts sometimes take 4 or 5 years to negotiate, but you keep the protections. The difference in the airline industry is your contract doesn't expire, becomes amendable, so you're still protected by it while you negotiate a new
Do you know
one.
what I hate when I'm in the middle of flying and my pilot goes on strike?
Yeah, no, it's
When you're in the air.
especially if you're in the air. I mean,
Not good. It's not good. I think most of them, though.
Then autopilot.
I can remember the
Well, there
last
is
strike in the
autopilot.
airline
There is
industry.
autopilot.
It's been so long.
Right.
I like auto.
And I can tell you some pilot stories. I live with somebody who's a retired pilot. He landed in the wrong country one time. And I can say that on the air because he's right now not in the country and not listening.
He might be. He could have landed in the wrong place again.
So how do listeners learn more information?
Listeners can learn more about this campaign. The agents at American have a website. It's www.american-agents.org. They can contact our office in Euless if they have questions, or if you're an American employee and have more questions to ask at 817-868-9933. And we're going to ask everybody, especially folks that are traveling this holiday season, if you're traveling through an airport and you see an agent with his red, or it should be now green after they vote, union pins on, to offer them some support, remind them that we're in this together, and wish them luck with their election.
And
they
Mike and
work hard over the holidays.
Mike and Steve, thank you very much for being here today. It's Lesbian New Year's.
It's Lesbian High Holy Days.
Because-
Janice Ian is in town tonight at the Windspear.
And
Does
we're
that
go-
mean we can go?
No.
That's
And we're going out with some music from Genesee.
Yeah, Between the Lines.
But say it anyway. Of holidays and yesterdays and broken dreams that somehow slipped away.
You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, the voice of the people, voted best radio station for music 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
Did you know that KNON podcasts all of its local talk shows? KNON has local talk, each show covering your community in its own unique way. So if you missed one of our great morning talk shows, you can go back and listen to it online. We keep the shows for 2 months so you can hear everything you have been missing out on. Visit KNON.org for more information about the KNON Morning Talk Shows podcast, also available on iTunes.